Hey fellow foodies, it's Faye from faysfood.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make traditional apple pie just in time for Thanksgiving. In my bowl I have some pastry flour. I'm going to add in the butter. Now this is some unsalted European style butter. I did cut it up into pieces here, and it is coming straight from the freezer. So if you're in a pinch, you can use some all-purpose flour and some American style butter, but I really like the combination of the pastry flour and the European style butter. It really leads to a flavorful and flaky crust. So you just want to toss the butter and the flour together and then smash the butter pieces in between your index finger and your thumb. Obviously this is going to be a little tough since they're frozen, but just do your best. And the goal here isn't to smash every little butter piece into bits. No, we're just trying to get a majority of the pieces incorporated into the flour, but you really do want some lumps to remain. That's what you're looking for. Okay, so we got all our butter in there, and I'm going to add the shortening. I'm using a high ratio shortening brand called Sweet Tex. Those of you who cake decorate should be very familiar with Sweet Tex. You can use any high ratio shortening, and you can also use lard if you'd like. However, if you're in a pinch, you can use Crisco. I just really don't recommend it. The aftertaste of Crisco is just not my favorite, so I guess you could use it. I just don't do it. Okay, so toss the shortening with the flour and do the same process. Just smash each piece in between your thumb and your index finger. And if I didn't mention it already, the shortening was in the freezer as well. Really, throughout this process, the key is you want to keep your ingredients cold. Because you are working with your hands, the ingredients will warm up a bit. And depending on the room temperature, obviously, that would have an effect. So really, the key is if it does warm up on you, put it back in the freezer for about 5-10 minutes. Let it get back to that cold temperature. So again, we're not trying to mash every little piece. So you see there's still some lumps there. That's perfect. That's what we want. So I'm going to form a well in the middle. And into the well, I will add in the salt and the white vinegar, and of course the ice cold water. Then, of course, using my hands again, I'm going to just gently bring in the flour from the outsides into the well. And I'm going to start working in the dough in the bowl. Gently, we don't want to overdo it. But you see how easy it is to make pie dough. Just like that, we have pie dough. So in the bowl, I'm going to start the frissage method, which is really just working the dough with the heel of my hand. I'm only going to do that a couple times in the bowl, and then when I see it's time to move it to my work surface, I'll do that. So my work surface is well floured, and I just dump the dough all on there. And then I'm going to start the frissage method fully onto the on the table. So really you're just working it with the heel of your hand until the dough comes together. The goal here isn't to overwork it, it's really just to combine it, until it's just combined. And you'll see it comes together pretty quickly. Okay, so you can see it came together quickly, and then I want to form it into a log just so that we can wrap it up. And I do recommend that this dough stays chilled overnight. Again, if you're in a pinch, you can do a few hours, but I mean, just do it overnight. Let the dough rest, the flavors will develop. Just do it, okay? So while that's chilling overnight, the same day what we can do is start the apple filling, because the apple filling also needs to rest overnight. So in my stock pot, you can use a saucepan as well. This is all I had though. I'm gonna pour in my apples. And this might look like a lot, but we're filling a 10-inch pie tin, so it's not really a lot. Anyways, so the apples I'm using are some Fuji, Gala, and Granny Smith apples, as I add in my sugar, and salt. You can use any variety you'd like, just make sure it's a good baking apple, because there are some that are not made for baking. You can also see that I didn't cut them too thin. I do want some heft to them because I don't want them to turn into mush in the oven. So this is over a medium to medium high heat. I'm adding in my cinnamon and brown sugar now. And the key here is not to cook these fully through. We just want to cook them until kind of al dente, because they're going to continue to cook once they're in the pie and in the oven. It's kind of just giving it a head start. So I'm adding in my butter now. Give this a mix. And then you want to make a slurry. And this is just some cornstarch and apple cider. Give that a mix. And we'll add it to our apple mixture. And this is what's going to help thicken it up. I do want to make a note here. The apples, while I was cutting them, they were in some apple cider. I do recommend you put them in some something acidic. So lemon juice, apple juice, pineapple juice, apple cider. Anything acidic so they don't brown while you're prepping everything else. So anyways, I added in my slurry, and then I just waited a few more minutes, and you can see that it really does start to thicken up after about 5 minutes or so. Works pretty quickly. So really you're just cooking this until al dente. You should have some firmness when you bite into it, because we're going to cook it all the way through once it's in the oven. Okay, great. So now I'm going to pour this into a shallow dish. Get all that goo in there. That's the good stuff. And I'm going to let this cool down. We don't want to put it right away in the fridge. I'm going to let it cool down for about 10 to 15 minutes. And then I'm going to cover it in saran wrap. And then we can let this rest overnight. Alright, so the next day, I did cut my log into about an 8-inch disc. I'm sorry, 8 ounce to 9 ounce disc. And then I began to pat it down, kind of roll it, or pat it into a round and pat it down. And then you can roll it. I like using a French rolling pin, but any rolling pin will do. The key when you're rolling though is you want to constantly turn it. You want to start round so that you can end round. And you want to work pretty quickly because a cold dough will be easiest to work with. And if you find yourself having the dough stick even on a well-floured surface, you want to put it back in the fridge for just a little bit. So I like to really roll it out pretty thick. This is all optional, but I find it's just easier to handle when it's has a little bit of thickness, and of course it's cold. So I just put that in my pie pan here, and I'm going to lightly pat down on the bottom and on the edges. And then I'm going to trim off any excess, just snipping off the excess. And I don't know if you saw, but when I was rolling it out, but you can kind of still see the butter pieces in there. And that's exactly what we want. We want visible butter pieces and shortening pieces, because that means that that's going to be a flaky, flaky crust. Okay, so I'm choosing to go with a lattice top. You really don't have to. Either way is fine. If you don't choose to, you would just roll out the other 8 or 9 ounce top into a round and then cut slits before you bake it off. But anyways, I'm gonna go ahead and pour in the apple filling. You can see how it looks after it chilled overnight. And I'm gonna just, before I do that, dock the dough. This is very important so that the air can get released from the dough and it doesn't puff up in the oven. So I don't just dock the bottoms, I really also try to dock the sides. Not overkill, but I try to get a little bit of some holes in there. And really, I would say when making pies, especially pies where there's dough involved, the key is prep, because unless you have a very cold kitchen, the environment isn't your friend. You really want to work quickly. So I have my egg wash here, just some milk and some eggs in there. I'm just going to wash the bottom and the sides. Now, the key with egg wash is you want to make sure that it doesn't puddle anywhere, because then it will burn. So you really want to try to apply it as evenly as possible. Once the egg wash is on there, I went ahead and poured in the apple pie filling and just kind of spread it evenly. You want some goo, you don't want all the goo, you don't want it to get soggy on the bottom, so try to kind of balance that. So I'm not going to really show you the full process of the lattice top, because there's tons of videos and blogs and pictures for that, but all I did really was roll out around again, cut some strips. I'm cutting off the excess, and then you alternate between each strip and then add a different strip. It sounds complicated, it's really not, but there are full tutorials on YouTube, on other sites. It's not hard to do or to learn. And you don't even have to do it. You can just do a regular top and then cut some slits. That's totally fine too. One thing I didn't show during this part, before the lattice top, what I should have done is added some butter pieces. I ended up doing that after, through the holes, but make sure you add some butter pieces in on top of the apple pie filling. So anyways, so I crimped the edges. Again, I'm not going to show you because there's plenty of tutorials for that, but it's not even like good, so why would I show you it? But anyways, so I crimped it, and then I'm brushing the top and the sides again with the egg wash. And I'm again being mindful to not have any puddles. We don't want any burning on top. After that, I'm going to sprinkle on some sugar. I'm just using granulated sugar. You can use coarse sugar if you want like a nicer, sandier look on top. That's also optional. And then we're going to go ahead and bake this off at about 375 for about an hour to an hour and a half. It really depends on your oven. I do check it at like the 50-minute mark. If it starts to get too brown on the edges, you can cover the edges with some aluminum foil and then put it back in the oven so that the top can bake and the inside can bake. Alright, so after it bakes, it'll look nice and golden brown. You do want it to cool for about an hour. It will still be warm. but it'll give the pie a chance to set up so you can get a nice clean slice. For the full recipe, go to faysfood.com, like this video, comment below for any comments or questions, and make sure you subscribe to this channel for more great videos on the way. I will make this sacrifice and give this piece of pie a try for you guys. The flavor is just totally amazing, not overpowering at all. The crust is nice and flaky, and of course I had to serve it with some caramel and some vanilla ice cream. It's kind of mandatory if you're in the pie world. Get some ice cream in there, some nice apple pieces, which are not mushy at all, which I absolutely love. They have some texture to them. Give this a try, you will love it. Until next time, guys, have a wonderful day.
I can take it there, cause you know I need it. It really ain't fair, cause you know I mean it. You got all of me at just one time. Stay here with me, we'll be fine. And it take me forever